Welcome to the Project Elected podcast. Project Elect is a nonpartisan nonprofit whose goal is pretty simple. We want to get more Latter-day Saint women involved in public service. I want to introduce myself. My name is Audrey Perry Martin, and I'm going to be the host of this podcast. So I'm the founder and CEO of Project Elect, and I'm also a political attorney. I've been working in politics for over 15 years, and I've worked on presidential campaigns for Congress, for all kinds of candidates and political committees. And on this podcast, we'll be interviewing amazing women who've run for office, campaign experts who can give advice on running campaigns, and other really amazing inspirational thought leaders. I'm really exceptionally excited, though, today about this podcast because my guest is a dear friend and a Project Elect board member. But not only that, she's an amazing school board member and the inspirational seed behind Project Elect's founding. Her name's Rachelle Price, and she's a trustee for the Rocklin Unified School District in Rocklin, California. Thank you so much for being here today, Rachelle. This is going to be so much fun.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, okay, before I start interrogating you and pulling from your vast store of wisdom, I want to tell the story about how Project Elect came to be and your role in it. So one day a few years ago, this was pre-COVID, a woman in my stake, and Rachelle and I are actually in the same stake, she called me and she told me about some problems that she saw that were going on in the local school board, and she wanted my political advice about what to do. And I hate to say it, but I totally brushed her off. I told her there was nothing she could do, they weren't going to listen to her, there was too much red tape, and I gave her all of my defeatist, cynical views, basically told her just to give it up. But she didn't listen to me, thank goodness. And she gathered other Latter-day Saint women together, and they all chipped in their own skills and resources to lobby the school board and get the changes they wanted. And what started out with just a few women members eventually grew and grew, and they brought in these other community groups and faith groups, and they ended up turning it into this incredible grassroots campaign that would have cost thousands of dollars in the political world. And these women, they put it together with no money, with no real political experience, and it just blew me away how effective they were able to be. And so one day during this whole process, I was sitting in a school board meeting, and a woman got up who was opposed to what the Latter-day Saint group of women were advocating for. And she was really angry, she was emotional, she was upset. And when she was done speaking, she went back down to her seat, and she was sitting by herself. There weren't a lot of people who agreed with her there at the meeting, and I was sitting right behind her. And immediately, Rachelle, who was sitting at the meeting watching, she left her seat with her friends, and she came and sat next to this woman, and she put her arm around her, and she said something along the lines of, "Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this issue. Your thoughts really touched me. I really appreciate you telling us about your experiences." And watching that, I was almost in tears right there. Never in my almost 2 decades of working in politics had I seen someone manifest such a clear, genuine concern and compassion for someone who disagreed with them, for someone who was actively fighting against them, who didn't treat that person as an opponent, but as someone that they wanted to better understand and someone that they wanted to befriend. And that's really Rachelle to a T. And that experience, watching that right there, it was like a lightning bolt to me, that these Latter-day Saint women, they were competent. I knew they were competent. I knew they were talented and amazing. But to see them in action in the political sphere, it became so clear to me what an incredible impact for good these women could have in the political community. And that's what inspired me to start Project Elect. So Rachelle, Project Elect is very indebted to you. I'm very indebted to you. And our friendship has just grown since that incident. And I'm very, this is just you. This is Rachelle. She's everybody's friend, and she wants to understand people and befriend them and listen to them. And that's who she is. And I'm really excited to talk to her about her journey after that and what her experiences have been since then. So Rachelle, would you kind of introduce yourself and tell me about your current position and your background?
Yeah, I'm a little bit humbled to be already starting in tears. I appreciate you sharing that, because especially at a time right now in our community, in our state, and in our country, even in our world, where we really need more understanding and civil discourse, I'm happy to be a small part of that. I am a mom of 5. I'm a small business owner. I grew up in a small town in southern Idaho where we didn't have great schools, and that probably has made me a little more passionate as an adult and having my own children about education. But I attended BYU, and we have lived in Rocklin for over 20 years. We're just north of Sacramento. It's a beautiful bedroom community at the foothills with 65,000 people, and we have a school district with 12,000 students. And right now I'm currently serving as the president of that Board of Education and really enjoying it.
That's fantastic. So what are some things that you've been able to accomplish as an elected official on the school board that you've been proud of?
I think I don't have a long list. I've only been in for 2 years, but I think the things that I'm actually the most proud of are behind the scenes. They're small, they're simple, like the experience that you shared, where we can find mutual understanding and find ways to put kids first and to move forward, especially during COVID. This has been such a controversial, highly toxic environment. And it was important for me to get kids back in school, and we had a lot of opposition to doing that. But there have been a lot of behind the scenes things that have happened, and some things that have been, really public. We were able to get kids back in school before most other school districts in the state of California. I feel really strongly about finding the things that people do agree on, and moving forward, working together, especially in education where our children are the most important result of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rachelle, I think that's what I appreciate the most about you as a school board member, because this has been a really tough time to be on a school board, and you got in right before COVID started, and then we're kind of thrown into the deep end on the school board. And I think it's been a really hard time to be a school board member right now and make all of these decisions and choices, and everybody's mad at you from all different sides, no matter what happens, right? And I think the only thing that you can do in that situation is what you have been doing, is to listen and to try and find common ground. And thank goodness you've been on the school board and have been able to do that, and that the school board has had someone like you on it to be a leader in that direction, and to be listening and letting people feel heard, and also just looking out for the kids and remembering that the kids are what's important in this situation.
Yeah, thank you. It has been challenging. I look back, I had 6 months on the board before COVID, and they just seemed like pure bliss. I'm like, wow, that was amazing. But I do see hope, and I do see that we're going to get back to focusing on the things that are really important. I can see that. So it's
yeah. That's great. I think everybody is very ready for that. Absolutely. So what drove you to get involved in politics? What convinced you to run for school board? And can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, sure. I definitely never saw myself involved in public service. Like I said, I grew up in a small town and definitely cared about education, and was really involved in my kids' education and all of their classrooms. I was part of all of those activities, the field trips and yearbook, all of the things in elementary school. And when my kids got into junior high, I happened to see an email where they said they were looking for people to be part of the site council. And the thought of that just kept coming back to me, and I was busy. I had 5 kids at home and a church calling and a family and a few other things going, and I finally, the thought came back enough times that I thought, okay, I've got to listen to this. And so I applied and really enjoyed that and learned a lot. And I did that for 3 years, and the principal and I became good friends. And during that time, he took this Idaho girl and taught her Robert's Rules. And I had no idea what Robert's Rules were, and didn't actually even think that it would be beneficial. But I was actually really grateful that Heavenly Father was just leading me and teaching me line upon line and a little bit at a time. And during that time, I was asked to be part of my district's strategic plan. And there I met some valuable district leaders as well as teachers and other parents. And I loved working on that and being part of the goals and the specific strategies to help move our district forward. And then another way that Heavenly Father was just leading me is after during that, actually, I was approached and asked to lead up the high school parent club. And I was already involved with my kids in the high school activities that were happening there, but I wasn't. It's different than being in elementary school, right? You're not in the classroom as much, and so you're almost an outsider trying to find your way into what your kids' activities are and how you can contribute there. And so I was actually really excited to be part of the parent club, and that gave me a lot of opportunities to see what was happening, kind of a little bit behind the scenes, and to build relationships in the community as well. And not long after that, a member of the state presidency asked me if I had ever considered running for school board. And in fact, I had, but only privately. And although I wasn't sure on the timing, because I still had kids at home, I agreed to pray about it and consider it. And the Lord's hand was in this all along. I began to look into what it would entail and made some phone calls and started meeting with people in my community. And right around that time, a seat vacated. And I had, oh my goodness, the scariest interview of my life. It was a public interview. There were 7 of us applying, but I was unanimously chosen and appointed to the board, which was a huge blessing, a great way to learn and get my feet under me before I ran for election in November of 2020.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story.
And I love that story so much, because one of the things we talk about so much at Project Elect is how getting involved in your community is one of the main things that can qualify you to run for public office. And that's exactly what happened for you. And so things like site council, which I know different school districts call it different things, but just being involved in your school, or being involved like on the Parks and Recs Commission, or, community plays, or, these boards and commissions your town has, like looking into those things and thinking, hey, maybe I don't want to run for office now. Maybe this isn't the right time for me, but just getting involved and getting to know people and getting to know your community and serving in that way. And then maybe Heavenly Father will lead you to more. Maybe He won't, but be open to it, and be open to the possibility that maybe that's something that you're supposed to do, and that's a way that you can serve, and that's a way you can become more qualified to serve by just knowing your community and serving in your kids' schools, which is what so many LDS women do, right? I mean, I think so many of us are very qualified to be in public office because of all the things that we do in our communities.
We have lots of practice, and we are seen as contributors, and we want to continue to do that, right? To continue to step up. And I often share with friends, look for things that your family is already involved with. If your kids are playing baseball, awesome. They have a board, right? What are their needs? I've never offered and been turned away, right? When I volunteer my time, people always say, oh my goodness, we would love it. Thank you so much. And so I think you're right. There are so many opportunities around us. And if we just look at the things that our family's already involved with, and then other opportunities as well, they're out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what do you think makes a good public servant? What, in your opinion, makes a good public servant?
I think somebody that is willing to listen to other people, to work across the aisle and listen to all sorts of life experiences and opinions and beliefs, and then also willing to stand up for their own beliefs and their own personal why, and the reason why they ran and were elected. I think it's a tricky balance, but I think also someone who is motivated to be a positive influence on their community or their state. That's it. Those are the things that a person that has a good heart is always going to be a blessing to others. And school board, this is a volunteer position. This isn't, I'm not going to get rich off of this, but I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to contribute and give back.
I love that you say it's someone who wants to serve in their heart, because I think a lot of times we think of politics and politicians as being self-promoting and, wanting to like get in that tweet that, or getting the Fox News spot, or, saying the clever quip or whatever. And that's not, that doesn't have to be what public service and running for office is about, and probably shouldn't be about, right? It should be about wanting to serve in your community and wanting to help others, and having that desire in your heart to actually help out and be a servant. Yeah. And I also like to tell people, you don't have to become a politician if you run for office, right? I mean, you can serve a term or two and then find somebody else you think is going to be great and help them run for your spot. I mean, that's very reasonable to do. And I think so many women and women of faith have that heart and have that desire to serve and help others, that wouldn't it be amazing if we could convince them to run and serve in their communities? Right. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Rachelle, but
it's true. And also help them find the right season to do that, you know, and that's individual, and it's got to be, you know, we've got to be prayerful about that. But I do agree with you. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. So playing into that, I mean, do you think more women of faith should run for office, and what are the reasons for that? Like, why do you think?
Oh, absolutely. We need women who know about their communities and their schools and what the needs are and have ideas for solutions. And I really have found that to be the case, that we have women have a different network. They communicate a lot and they have friends, experiences, and skills. And we need these women who can listen and gather and be a positive influence. They can exemplify civil discourse, right, in a way that is unique to us as women. I think, too, the building of bridges is going to be a little bit easier for women. And at a time such as this, that we really do need to see that. Women have unique talents and gifts. And that applies to all women of faith. I think for LDS women, we have some unique skills that we have been able to practice through having church callings. We have public speaking skills. We have been able to organize events. We know how to talk to others and be organized in gathering people together, and so many skills that are really important and can really be used in our communities as well.
Absolutely. But a lot of times I've found that, you know, women are reluctant to enter, you know, this political sphere and all the negativity that comes with that. Do you have any advice for them? What would you tell them?
Honestly, I say it's like Taylor Swift says, a hater's gonna hate. I hear you, I get it, and there are things that are hard. There are things that are really, really hard, but I still think that we don't back down from things that are scary, that we also recognize that God will help us and He will strengthen us. And I think that I have really learned to lean on Heavenly Father more through this. I've really learned that we can still communicate with people in a kind and respectful way, and to not retaliate. I think that it's possible, but I do hear them. It's scary, and these especially are scary times, but they can do it. Yeah.
Well, Rachelle, I've watched you with people who are, you know, yelling and screaming at you, and the way that you are able to diffuse those situations and do it kindly but firmly is incredible. And you've really perfected that art, and I know it cannot be easy. And it's really impressive that you are able to still reply with kindness and not, and like you said, not retaliate. And even if you're probably steaming inside, I can't imagine you wouldn't be with what people have said to you. You don't let it out, and you're still kind to them, and you're still very civil to them, and try to understand them, but also move on when it's time to move on.
Right. I want to share a unique experience I had during the campaign. There was a woman who was pretty brutal, and I reached out to her privately to try and address her concerns, and she was concerned about separating religion and state. And she also had concerns about how to protect and respond to issues of equity and people of color. And so as I continued to engage with her, and I was really prayerful about this and as kind as I could, she finally, the week before the campaign, messaged me, and she said, "After much thought, research, and reflection, you are among the 3 candidates I voted for. I also convinced my husband and father-in-law to vote for you too. I think what sealed it for me was your answer to the teacher diversity question during the forum. You answered the question with such conviction and sincerity. I honestly believe your heart is in the right place and that you have no agenda other than what's best for each and every student in our district. You seem to recognize at some level the need for more support for students of color and other marginalized students in our district and inequities that exist. To me, you appear as willing to learn and come up with a solution that it is worth it for me to take a chance on you." And that really meant so much to me. Not that this is by any means about me, but that really, as I reached out to her, and there was definitely some misunderstanding there, but as I reached out to her and said, hey, let me explain to you my heart and where I'm coming from, she was able to see my sincerity. And it really is one person at a time, one act of kindness, not only, perceptions, but hopefully hearts can change too.
Mm-hmm. That's a great story that you were able to convince someone who, was really negative in the beginning to actually vote for you. I mean, that's incredible, and it speaks very highly of your ability to reach out and build bridges, and that's incredible. And I think that's something we need more of so badly in our world today. So I'm so happy that you are in office and building those bridges. Did you find any impediments to running for office because you're an LDS woman, or do you feel like that helped you, and maybe how?
I do think it was helpful in that in Rocklin, in our community, I felt like LDS women are seen. We have a great reputation. And when I was at the elementary school, when my kids got to like 5th grade, one of the administrators said, oh good, we're so glad to have another LDS woman here to run our big colonial fair for the entire school. And I laughed and said, how come? And she said, because we've had 4 in a row and it's been amazing, and you guys know how to organize it and make it happen, which I thought was just a huge compliment to the women of the church, right? And what others see. And so I do feel like that was a blessing. And hopefully as members of the church, we're seen as great neighbors, right? And contributors and women that step up and see a need and really fill it. So I do think that it was challenging. There's always some misconceptions on the other end. But this was a perfect example, that woman on Facebook, right? When you actually reach out or you get to know somebody, you usually find that you have more in common than not. And so I feel like that's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So I wanted to also ask you about kind of your family and what they thought about you running for office, and how they supported you, or, how they felt about you running for office.
Yeah, that I'm glad you asked. This was a family decision because I knew that this was going to take some time in it. And when I ran, I had 4 kids still at home out of my 5. And so we really spent a lot of time talking about it as a family, thinking about it, and ultimately praying about it. And I feel so grateful because my husband has been my biggest fan. He stays up late after board meetings, and he lets me hash it through with him afterwards till early hours of the morning. And my kids have been amazing. It's not easy to be in high school during a stressful time like COVID. It's not easy when you're in a leadership class or maybe, even teachers have said things to them. And yet they have also seen, this is hard, right? And they see it from my perspective, but they've been such great cheerleaders. And during the campaign, they knocked doors and they put out yard signs, and it was awesome. It really was such a team effort, and I'm so grateful for their support. I definitely could not do it without them.
Well, you have such amazing kids. You're an amazing mother, and your kids are some of my favorites. So, so do you have, just kind of going back to maybe advice that you can offer to people who are considering a run or thinking about it? What advice would you offer to like a complete political newbie who's maybe thinking about it but doesn't know much about politics?
I would first just be really encouraging, and you if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And if you put your heart in it, your heart's in the right place, you can do it. I would say don't reinvent the wheel. Somebody out there has done this and will take you under their wing and show you how to do it and who you need to talk to and who you need to meet. And I really found that to be the case. I had 2 men in the community that took me under their wing and said, that were really involved in the political scene and knew exactly how to navigate things in a way that I definitely did not. And that was a huge help. And then, as you know, Audrey, you were a huge help with fundraising. I had no idea how I was going to raise the money that I needed. And one night I was talking to my husband, and he said, I know who would know this answer. And I said, you do? Good, because I do not. And he said, Audrey Martin will know the answer. And that was total answer to prayers, because as soon as I called you, you said, yes, I know how to do this. And this is the game plan. And it really was a game changer for me. I think that there are people out there that are willing to help. This isn't something that we have to do by ourselves. My friends were such a great support, dropping off meals and sending texts, yes, but also gathering together and distributing signs and flyers and really hands-on help as well. And I needed both. I really needed the emotional support and love, and also the hands-on. And so I think that there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. To do your homework and find people that are willing to help you, and also be humble and really willing to learn the way things work. And that came, it was a humbling experience anyways, but it came also from spending a lot of time on my knees and trying to figure out how I could do this with Heavenly Father's help.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think you really did find some people who knew a lot about your geographical area and about Rocklin voters, and they were great help.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. And I don't know if you were going to get to this, but I do want to share some advice that I got when I was running. I had heard a few people saying, like, you've got to have really thick skin and you've got to be like an armadillo. And I was like, okay, I'm gearing up for this, right? But one morning I was searching my patriarchal blessing, and that's Heavenly Father's advice to us, right? Individually. And I read a line that reminded me that I had been blessed with a personality that attracted people, and to continue to develop that and watch for ways to love and serve other people. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a little bit, it didn't feel like an armadillo. And later on that day, I happened to run across a sweet man who was running for city council. And he happened to catch me at a really vulnerable moment, and I kind of said, oh, this is hard, right? I'm trying to have thick skin, and I also really want to have a soft heart. And he said, you know what? You've actually got to be like a duck. And that was it. I envisioned from then on every comment, every hard thing that happened, just letting it wash off my back. And that was really, really good advice. And I have a little duck sticker that I've kept that just reminds me to be a duck. And in addition, there was one other really important conversation I had, and that was with one of the county supervisors. And we happened to run into each other at an event, and I was, she said, how's it going? And she could probably see from the look at my face that, okay, yeah, I'm plugging away, here we go, right? And she said, first she empathized with me about this process, and especially about being a woman and how hard it was. And then she reminded me to really, no matter what, to just stay focused on running my best race. And that was something I was in control of. And that immediately brought me peace, and it was exactly what I needed. And so since then, and the advice that I so cherish and would also give to others is that just stay focused on running your race. And when you're campaigning, right? And now that I'm on the school board, I am really focused on what is best for kids and what my community's needs are, and listening for sure. And also the other things can just be distractions. So that was a huge help.
That's great advice. I love both of those pieces of advice. A duck, I mean, it's still got soft feathers, but it just lets that water roll right off its back, right? Yeah, that's great. So what was the most rewarding part of this whole experience?
I think, I hope I look back with the same, I'm sure that over the next few years it will change, but I think one of the most rewarding things has been watching my family, teaching my kids without words what it looks like to do something really hard, and also to stand up for what you feel strongly about and what you believe in. And also, it's been rewarding to contribute in my community that I love, and I know that good schools bring good people, and good people make amazing communities. And so that is my why, right? That's why I'm on the school board, because I love my community and the people in it, and I want to have good schools. And so contributing to that gives you a sense of satisfaction, right? And like I said before, a lot of it is behind the scenes. A lot of it is small conversations and small wins. But that has been really rewarding. And then the other thing I think is just learning more to lean on my Heavenly Father, and to watch for and see, my goodness, when I look back, it's so obvious, but trying to be really present also and watch for His hand and what he wants for me, and how He's helping me and leading and guiding me.
That's fantastic, Rachelle. You are an inspiration to me always. We're the same age, but I always say I want to be just like you when I grow up. So maybe one day. Maybe one day.
The same way about you.
Well, thank you so much, Rachelle. This was such an amazing and enlightening conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know your schedule is crazy. She's had a missionary come home and a missionary go out in the past, month? 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Yeah, it's good things to be busy with, but a lot of great things going on in her life right now. So we appreciate your time, Rachelle, and you are fantastic as always. And to close up today, we always want to leave you with an invitation at the end of our Project Elected podcast. And so the invitation I want to leave you with today is to look for ways that you can contribute in your community. So like we talked about before, there's all kinds of boards and commissions. And like Rachelle said, she was on site council. She was involved with her kids' schools. Look for ways you can contribute. Look online, ask around if you don't know. People know there's so many ways you can, and you're probably already involved in lots of different things. And so look at the things you're already involved in and maybe how you can get a little bit more involved in your community. And so that's our invitation for you today. And Rachelle, do you have an invitation?
Yeah, I do. I want to add to that because people do know, right, in our community what there is, but also most importantly that we're really prayerful to our Heavenly Father about it's not if we can do something, it's where He wants us to contribute and how and when, and those details He knows. And as we get out of our comfort zone, it's amazing what Heavenly Father will provide. I really feel strongly about this. I've seen it in my own life. I feel like I was called by Him to do this work, and I want to continue to be prayerful, and I want to invite everyone to do that. Be prayerful and ask Heavenly Father how they can contribute.
That's beautiful. And I think, if we are prayerful about it, He will guide us and let us know what we need to be doing and how we can serve. Mm-hmm. And I think that's incredible. Yeah. And we just need to be open to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thank you, Rachelle. You're the best. You're like my favorite guest ever. So I feel very lucky that I got to have you on. And so thank you for listening. Make sure to rate us on Apple Podcasts. We would love that. And come back and listen again. And we will talk to you later.